I think I quit Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree too soon, and I'm coming back, but this time it'll be on my own terms. A debate that nobody expected to see about a FromSoft game has been brewing since the launch of the Elden Ring DLC, and fans of the game are split on if the expansion is too hard or exactly what everybody should expected from a FromSoft DLC. Big-name streamers are ranging from criticizing the expansion to just outright quitting the game or going pretty hard to defend it, like Kai Cenat, who is fairly new to the franchise and has become one of its biggest fans, basically told everybody to get good. Others are pointing to clips of folks that beat the game that aren't even really known for Souls or FromSoft gameplay. And then there's Asmongold, the one who made me question if I had quit too soon. A clip emerged of him saying that the DLC was too hard for him to enjoy it and it was too hard to be fun, and I really resonated with what he said. Not that we were saying it's too hard and is therefore bad, but more, at least for me, I knew what the expansion was going to demand of me after I beat the first Lion boss, and I just didn't feel motivated to do it. The draw wasn't there. The magic and the mystique of the open world that pulled me in when the game first launched, it felt like it had vanished, and all that remained was a towering monolith that I had no interest in toppling. And then I started seeing clips of people who changed their builds and they tried new things, and they saw great results. Asmongold created a build where he no longer needed to roll on the ground 7 times to avoid a lengthy, spammy combo. He just guard countered these enemies into oblivion. And I have to admit, as someone who really enjoyed my second playthrough with Sword and Shield, I really was spoke to by that clip. And then Yang Ya used parry to completely change the flow of a game, and that got a lot of attention, which made me start to think, I may have quit this DLC too early. As feedback continues to pour in, even members of my own community have said, listen, if you explore and you just find the currency that makes you stronger, you're really going to enjoy that part of the game. This is based on how much I enjoyed the early sections of Elden Ring, the exploration I just loved. So let's talk about why I quit, but more importantly, why and how I'll be coming back. Now, every weekday here on Reforge Gaming, I tell you what I think about a gaming topic, and then I want to know what you think in a live stream that'll follow this video. So, if you like this kind of content, remember to hit like and subscribe. My time in Shadow of the Erdtree clocked right at about 2 hours so far, and you can watch that gameplay on this channel, and it ends with me beating the Divine Beast Dancing Lion after only about 4 or 5 tries. While I was reluctant to immediately summon Black Knife Tiche, it completely changed the flow of the fight when I did. I jokingly said that I felt like I was fighting a tornado, and I seem to be in good company as I am seeing some valid criticisms of how the fight and the boss is designed. But one thing was clear after this fight. If you're going to play a melee-based build without spells or summons, some of these fights are really going to make you question that. But it was after the lion fight when a sense of dread sort of washed over me and ultimately led to me saying I would not be continuing the expansion. After killing the boss, we sort of respec'd my character, we were looking through my weapons, and we were considering all the options available to me. I much prefer blocking or parrying in games like Sekiro and Lies of P to the way that Elden Ring sort of has you rolling around. I think that's why my no summon Sword and Shield build was the most fun I have ever had in Elden Ring. I used guard counters, square off, and I heavily focused on breaking the posture of bosses. And it wasn't just satisfying because it worked. It was satisfying because I came up with the build and I really made it work in fights even when people told me that it wouldn't work for certain bosses. So we were considering how I could approach the Shadow of the Erdtree if I was currently using this dual twin blade bleed build that we came up with, and we did it because it was fun. I was doing New Game Plus and just wanted to try out something new. I remember with that particular build on New Game Plus, I killed Radon in like 5 hits, and I was like, I don't want to play this. This doesn't feel fun. It doesn't feel challenging. It sort of felt like a bit of a joke. And that's when we started the Sword and Shield no summons run. Now, folks rightly said, listen, you enjoy Sword and Shield. That's how you started the game. Why don't you go back to your roots? That's what made me quit Shadow of the Erdtree. I was facing a materials grind on my New Game Plus character because I rolled over before they made the update to the bell-bearing NPC where you can buy the stones and things that you need to upgrade your gear. And that meant if I was going to switch to a Sword and Shield build, I was going to have to do a respec and a grind and go look for different things. So I was faced with a choice. I could continue on the build that I really wasn't super fond of, which was a bleed build with these twin blades. I could go grab my Sword and Shield character, which meant I'd have to fight Mohg all over again, or I could quit. So I quit. Not in a rage, not in a fit of fury, just calmly said, listen, this DLC is going to ask me to do a lot of things that I just don't want to do right now. But then, over the weekend, light broke through. The Asmongold clip of him turning his character into a wall and heavily relying on guard counter looked like a ton of fun. At the very least, it would be the way for me to play so I wouldn't feel like I was wearing someone else's shoes. Now, with everything I said just the other day about how I really wasn't going to be able to enjoy the DLC, the question is, well, why am I coming back? One of the main pieces of feedback about this DLC being too hard is that folks are not engaging with the content in the way it's been designed. My contention with the expansion was not that it was too hard and therefore bad, but that it was going to be too hard for me to enjoy it, which is a very different sort of feedback. However, some people are missing two very important factors in this DLC. First, this is endgame content. I myself had to shake off the rust when I started facing tougher enemies like these combo happy knights with their big and punishing swords, and I think many folks strutted into this DLC expecting to be strong and ready to tackle the basic enemies and maybe even some of the early bosses, and that simply is not the case. The second thing to consider is that this DLC has its own power structure to avoid letting over-leveled players just kind of steamroll through the content. If you are not exploring and increasing your Scadu Tree blessing, well, it doesn't really matter how strong you are, you're not going to be getting stronger in the DLC itself. And that is a huge element that has me compelled to come back to the game. The open world exploration in Elden Ring is, in my opinion, virtually unmatched. It is one of my favorite things about the game, and I will admit, I already had a twinge of regret when I saw folks stepping into the DLC and looking out on the new landscape and setting, and everything seemed fresh and new. It really evokes mystery and a sense of exploratory purpose like no other game, and missing out on that was giving me a serious sense of jealousy. Now, the second big reason that I want to go back in is I just love sword and shield gameplay in this game, and I forgot how much I did until I saw this infamous Asmongold video. Honestly, I wish I would have finished my playthrough with my sword and shield character and just sort of abandoned my snow summons commitment. I could have embraced more co-op. I could have done that off stream and just with the goal of enjoying it and maybe even playing with my community and playing the game on my own terms. I was attempting to do something that I thought would be compelling or interesting, not necessarily because I thought it would be better for me. And I think I'm abandoning notions that maybe you should consider as well. While summoning does take away some of the enjoyment for me when you finesse a boss and you finally master all those animations, the late game of Elden Ring, and especially this DLC, seems to heavily motivate you to use summons. The stubborn and egotistical part of me just wants to do it on my own, but if it leads to an enjoyable experience or an unenjoyable experience, well then what am I gaining by doing that? And that's another huge reason that I'm going back. I'm going back on my own terms. I don't care if folks think that summoning is illegitimate. I'm not playing the game for them. Or if folks think that co-op on a boss is crutching or getting carried. Well, let them play the game on their terms and I'll play it on mine. The DLC has received too much praise and the art direction in the world is far too compelling for me to just sit this one out. As much as I criticize the back half of Elden Ring, I wonder if my mindset would have been different if I just accepted that summoning was part of the fun, or playing with other players is part of the fun. I feel like I disrespected my own run by I kept having to fall back on summons in virtually every boss fight. But what if I had the whole thing backwards? What if the brilliance of FromSoft's design choices with Elden Ring is just that? You can play the game on ultra hard if you want, you can land somewhere in the middle, or you can just prize fun and you can summon, you can use magic, you can co-op to your heart's content. I think my experience with Sekiro changed me in a good way, but it also laid in a trap in my mind. I thought to myself, if I don't beat this by myself, it won't be enjoyable. So it made summoning something that soured every boss fight in the second half of the game. I felt like I was falling back on something that wasn't really me playing. And it made letting other people help me just completely out of the question. But all the ego and pride did to me was rob me of a good experience, and consequently, it made me quit what looks like to be an award-winning DLC before I really gave it a shot. So, where do we go from here? I think it's clear that my outlook on the game has changed. I definitely allowed too much external pride and ego dictate how I approached this game. It made the back half of the game during my first playthrough unnecessarily frustrating. It drove me to a no summons run, which I will admit, it made the front half super enjoyable, but it made the back half of the game a journey that I was unwilling to take. But now, well, now I'm about enjoying games on my own terms. So I'm on a bit of a rescue mission. My sword and shield character, he's in his first playthrough. He's far enough that I'm going to be able to go get some bell bearings that I need, various talismans, various pieces of gear, and I can approach this DLC with the build that I want. I also plan on exploring and leveling my character in this DLC, so then we could stream boss fights and maybe even parts of the expansion. Maybe even have a return of From Fridays. I enjoyed having this as a staple on the channel, and I'm playing the game on my own terms. Well, maybe that'll appeal to other people who feel similar. If I, was ever known as a hardcore FromSoft guy, this might feel very out of character, but I'm never going to be known as a hardcore FromSoft guy. There are far better players and streamers for that type of content. You can go watch them. That's what they are known for. But I can certainly push against false notions and unnecessary ego that may be keeping folks from enjoying this game on their own terms. I'm willing to change and adapt and approach this game in a way that leads to more enjoyment. And if you like that idea, then join me on the journey. But those are just my thoughts. And now it's time to hear your thoughts. And you can do that in a comment below or in the live stream that follows this video. It'll also hit a card right here and be in a pinned comment below. I'm sure we'll get into a great debate about difficulty and this expansion and maybe even dip into the game. Now, if you like this content and you want more like it, please remember to like, share, and subscribe.